All right, grace and peace, everyone. Welcome to the Be Holy Podcast. I'm your host, Oski, and this is the podcast where we discuss Christian hip hop and everything connected to it. Oh, and of course, Jesus. So, the Be Holy Podcast is a platform where we discuss Christian hip hop and the Christian hip hop artists who takes their faith and their craft seriously. We want to celebrate Christian hip hop and the artists who are using their music to impact the culture for Christ. Now, I built this platform because I noticed that there was a gap. There's a lot of Christian hip hop happening right now, but the stories behind the artists are not being told. So, this platform was built to peel back the curtain and to tell the stories behind the sound. So, every episode, we're having real conversations about faith, culture, and creativity, and to do a temperature check on the Christian hip hop space and what it means to be a Christian hip hop artist. We're not here to judge, we're here to celebrate and inspire. So today's conversation, we're going to talk about from producer to rapper. Now, that's a very common theme as we hear artists like Kanye West, J. Cole, and even Dr. Dre who have made that pivot or that transition from being a producer to a rapper. But what does that look like as a believer and somebody who is in the Christian hip hop space? And we have somebody here, Mr. Eman, who's basically going to tell his story and join in on this conversation as we talk about overcoming insecurities, finding your path, and using your gifts and creativity to glorify the kingdom. So, E-Man, thank you, man, for joining this podcast. Thank you for joining in on this conversation. But E-Man, can you tell your whole government name if you do not mind?
Yeah, for sure. First things first, appreciate you for having me on. Very grateful to be on this
Absolutely.
platform. But
Absolutely.
as my I guess my stage name is Eman, but my full name is Emmanuel, Emmanuel Arrow. I'm of Nigerian descent. Um, um, I think the first one in my family to be born in the States. Everybody else is born in Nigeria. We're from the Igbo tribe, but yeah, it's a little bit.
Yeah. Shout out to my Igbo brothers. I'm also Nigerian myself. So, hey, man, different tribe, but same vibe. So, y'all know what it is. So, thank you, E-Man, for joining the podcast. Another question before we get started, man. And I ask every guest this question. What is your born again date?
Born again date is February 20th, 2022.
Amen. You gotta clap it up for that, man. And I ask every guest, man, because your born again date is so significant. It should be significant not only to you, but it should be significant to the people that you're witnessing to, because it's the very moment that life truly began to you, right? Because we understand that we was born into sin, shaped in iniquity, but because of what Jesus did on the cross, right, by dying on the cross and rising up in 3 days with all power and might, defeating sin and death, we now have an opportunity to have renewed life in him. So, man, I just want to let you know, like I tell every guest, we definitely gonna give you a gift on your born again date because I think that's what you deserve. All right. So just want to let you know that.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, without further ado, man, we just gonna go ahead and get started, brother. So, can you tell me a little bit about your background and through your background, how that led you to actually producing in the Christian hip hop space?
Okay. So, um, I guess to start, like I said before, I'm of Nigerian descent. I'm from a family of uh five or family of seven in total, including my parents. But I'm the youngest out of five children. Um, born in the States. I'm 23 years old currently. Now I guess a little bit of my background is that, because of our culture and us being Nigerians in America, obviously in Nigeria, we're a lot of our culture is shaped around music,
Mm,
especially in a church because we are Christian as well. So
mm,
being Nigerian Christian family, we have a lot of musical influences. Um, and because I had siblings that were also getting acclimated to the American culture as well, them finding their way and them experimenting also led to different influences in me, taking certain interests of things that they're doing, just by watching them, and stealing their iPod shuffle. You can see what's on their playlist. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
And so yeah, growing up, uh, I was I grew up kind of a musician. Really, I started playing the drums at age 4. Um,
Mm, that's
and
early.
yeah, started playing the drums at age 4. Played for my church from like 4th grade up until currently at the church that I'm going to now. Um, and throughout that time, mostly self-taught. My oldest brother kind of got my foot in the door as far as playing the drums, but I kind of just
Mm.
took things on my own after that. So all throughout school, I actually ended up picking up the saxophone in middle school.
Wow.
Around 5th grade, I played from 5th grade to high school to ninth grade. I kind of dropped it because playing the instrument at that time didn't really seem as cool. But I really wish I didn't drop it at the time. But it is what it
Mhm.
is. I still got the saxophone with me. I'll pick it up eventually. But
Oh,
yeah, so I was still playing the drums through high school, and I just really liked music. Whenever I do something, I always have like my headphones on, or a speaker playing if I'm doing chores, if I'm doing the lawn, washing dishes, going out on a run, going to the gym. I feel like it feels almost like a sin to go to the gym without music. Like, I don't.
I'm one. I if I there's been times I've been to the gym, forgot my headphones, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to the gym today.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand that.
Yeah. So around so I get so boom, go through my first 18 years of life. Pretty normal. I ain't really go out much. Get to college. I think this is end of 2021. Halfway through my freshman year of college. I'm home for winter break, and one of my older brothers was like, "Why don't you get into producing? You
Mm,
already been playing drums, things like that." And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" He had an MPC at home because he used to DJ, so he had some equipment already. Actually, this microphone that I'm holding is this is the joint that he gave to me. Still, I'm still using it.
wow.
I still have a
Oh.
he also gave me his Focusrite, the interface.
Hmm.
I still use that now. Um, what's it called? So he had the MPC, but I didn't start recording at that time, but that came later. But
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
he had this MPC, and I was just messing around with it for a couple of days during that winter break, and I was like, okay, I kind of like this. I watched some YouTube videos, and I started making a beat on there. I made my first beat on there. It wasn't really good, but
Sure,
I
sure.
I I I
You just
made
tapping
something.
into it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
made something. And I ended up before I went back to school for winter break, I ended up buying FL Studio. So um
Mm,
beginning of 2022 is when I started. Actually, my first FL Studio project is in December. It's like December 24th of 2021. But
mm,
I like got consistent with it. At the start of the year, you have when the new year comes, you have all this inspiration, but it really carried on for me, and I really like took it serious from that point on. I just kept watching a bunch of streams, my favorite producers, watching them, watching YouTube videos. Everything I learned as far as music or content goes is all for YouTube, YouTube University. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
Um,
Proud graduate.
yeah. And so yeah, growing. So I already had that gift kind of growing when
Mhm,
I'm in school, and so I get back to school, and like this is also when I started going to church consistently as well,
mhm,
around that time. So this is January going into February.
mhm,
February comes, I had some encounters, I had some experiences in the fall semester that, God was trying to, pull me from, a life of habitual sin, things like that, into, a
mhm,
life in Christ. And, like I said, my born again day was February 20th. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
when I really like decided to put my foot down. I was always a Christian the whole time, but it's like there are certain things in Christ that I was not willing to give up. You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like I was like one of them was like the sex before marriage thing. I was like, bro, if it happens, it happens. That's
Mm.
that was
Mm.
my mentality. It was just like
Right,
things
right,
like that, things like that I knew weren't correct, but it was just what I wanted to do. I wasn't really willing to give it up until, that time. And
right.
so I get born again and I'm hearing messages, the words really hitting me. And one of the words that's one of the word that stuck with me was the parable of the master and his servants when he left behind the talents.
Mm.
To some he gave 10. And obviously I know in that context he was talking about money and what's it called? Because talents was a form of currency back then. But I
Sure.
took it
Yeah.
I took it as, something that God has given me. What am I gonna do with it? You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
And
Right.
also in that scripture it said, you know, the guy that didn't, he tried to bury it or hide it from the master
Yeah.
when he came back. And you said the Bible said the little that he has, it will be taken away from him. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And given it to somebody else. So
Right.
I didn't really want that. And also, out of love for Jesus, if you love somebody, you wouldn't really hold anything back from them, especially when
Mm.
they gave it to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into producing in the Christian space.
Man, that's an awesome story, and that's one of my favorite parables because one of the ministers in my church, he always preaches and shares that parable, and always gives a good sermon or lesson on it because a lot of us have gifts that are imputed in us, but we don't necessarily realize that those gifts are supposed to come out and be used for the kingdom of God. So it's dope that God was tugging on your heart, trying to draw you out of habitual sin, as you said, so you can actually use those gifts for the glory of God. And you've had those gifts because, from what I'm hearing, you've been musically inclined since the age of 4. And what God has been doing is continuously grooming and nurturing and maturing that gift to the point where He says, son, you need to come to me so I can truly use you. So that's awesome, man. And that's really dope. But I definitely want to touch on, your first experience with the MPC and FL Studios. So initially you started off as a producer, but I want to know if you can expound upon it. What truly attracted you to producing, and why did you want to stay in the studio seat before you ended up entertaining being a rapper?
Okay. It was because I want I'm kind of a person that likes to solve my own problems. So like
Okay.
if I see something that I don't like, my first thought in my conscience is, okay, what are you gonna do about it? So at that time I was still freshly in Christ. Um and I was trying to change my music, the music that I listened to. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time I was still listening to worldly music. I was still listening to, you know, Lil Durk, Lil Baby, Young Boy,
Mm-hmm.
Polo G, all those guys. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And but the conflict was I was listening to them on my way to church. You get what I'm
Right,
saying?
right, right.
And like I had heard of like Christian rappers and Christian artists, but at the time, the music that I was being introduced to at the time, I didn't really like it. I didn't really like the sound of it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really doing nothing for me, to be honest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was like, okay, how I see there's, a kind of drop off in the sound quality of at least production. I know the lyrical content is already there in our Christian rap and our Christian hip hop and our Christian art, but the kind of, penmanship or the kind of artistry or production or sound quality I felt at the time was lacking. So I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do something about it. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a be a part of the change to where you can put on something Christian and people will bob their heads to it and not don't know that it's Christian yet, but just off the sound of it, like,
Right,
yeah, this is hard. And then
right.
start listening. Then they start listening to, okay, they talking about Jesus. Oh yeah, this is, yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I wanted to be a part of that, be a part of that change. That's really
Right.
what got me into it.
That's good, being part of the change. That's awesome to hear. So as you're learning producing and wanting to basically tighten and tune up that sound where it sounds good and crisp, where anybody can listen to it. And when they first initially hear it, they don't just think it's Christian music. They just think, yo, this is a fire beat or fire song. What were some of the early challenges that you had when it came to producing?
So getting into producing, um, certain things like I had ideas, but at the time I couldn't properly put them out in visible form or like in sound form. Like I knew what I wanted
Right,
the stuff to sound like in my head, but I
right,
found that when I listened to it a day later, that joke was buns,
right,
and it's not what I thought it was gonna be. And so
right.
early on, obviously when you've never produced before or never seen a DAW, it's gonna look like a pilot's dashboard. It's gonna look like a flight simulator at first,
Right,
and FL
right,
Studio is one of the more tame ones. If you've never touched music before and you look at Ableton, you're just gonna be distraught for like at least 2 weeks.
right, right.
But yeah, like getting familiar with the software was definitely a early challenge. Learning things like basic mixing principles, like okay, why is this sounding distorted? Because
Mm,
you have to, like, on FL Studio typically, you know you have the soft clipper on the master so things don't just distort and don't get too loud. But at the time I didn't have nothing on the master, so when I was trying to turn up my 808s, everything just started sounding out of whack and all that.
wow. Right,
And
right.
yeah, um and also like some early stuff. Let's see, I think some of the hardest stuff was making melodies myself.
Mm,
Was definitely the toughest part starting out, because at the time I didn't really know much about music theory.
music
Like
theory. Okay.
I just knew what sounded good, and I was just trying to put stuff together, but I didn't know why it sounded good. You get what I'm saying?
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's I mean, it's pretty normal for most producers, but yeah, I would say those three things, just kind of like basic mixing things, music theory, and just
Mm-hmm.
learning the software in general.
Learning the software. So it really just took putting all those elements together and not separating them in order for you to really grow as a producer.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, man. That's dope. So you mentioned something about your brother, right? Being one of the ones that encouraged you to get into producing, right?
Yeah.
So how important has he been when it comes to your music journey?
He's one of the primary people that got my foot in the door for sure, because
Mm,
um at the time he was just opening his studio, because he has a studio near where I live at, or where
mm-hmm,
our family lives at. Um and just being able, because he manages artists as well.
mm-hmm.
And he's also kind of like an engineer. So
Okay.
just being able to, like, look over his shoulder sometimes, or like get in some of the session, or just be in some of the sessions and just watch how, you know how he would track vocals, or how, he would arrange a song or things like that. He wasn't really like too front facing. It was just like the initial push that really got me into the
Yeah,
door, and then, like,
yeah.
after that, it was like, okay, I'll just ask him like a couple questions here and there, just about
Right,
certain things. But after that, yeah, that was pretty much it.
right, right. That's good. So he basically said, "Yeah, I'm gonna let you through the door, but I'm gonna take the training wheels off, and you got to figure it out."
Yeah,
That's sometimes the best way to learn, but I think we all just need that opportunity just to get through the door. And that's dope that your brother was able to actually provide that to you. So, for
yeah.
any artist, would you say that having family support is vastly important when it comes to growth as a producer or even an artist?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Obviously, I know everybody doesn't have that, but yeah, it definitely helps because
Mm.
when you're trying to run away from your moms and you're like, oh, that music down there is too loud. What you doing? Like, it's pretty discouraging. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, absolutely, absolutely.
As like hear it in your ear, like, oh, you why ain't you studying? You over here messing around on your laptop. Yeah. So
Right.
having that support definitely helps. Even though I have my brother, I still ran into some stuff like that, starting out
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because you know how it is. Nigerians, man, they kind of one track mind, especially when it comes to our parents. It's like books and that's it. Focus
Yeah,
on your studies, that's it. But it's good, man, when they actually are able to see that you have this gift and you're passionate about it. Because I think sometimes parents just want to know if you're passionate about it, then I need to see the hard work, the dedication, the work ethic to basically go along with that desire and that passion. And then
yeah,
they can actually believe in you and say, okay, like, what support do you need from me? You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So that's good to have that, man. So I also want to ask, I want to ask about, salvation, from salvation to music, right? And that transition, because you basically got saved around the same time that you were producing music. So I
yeah.
want to ask you, how did salvation impact your approach to music?
Mm. I would say, starting out, and making music, there are a lot of worship songs that I like, or there are a lot of moments during praise and worship that I hear in church that I
Hmm.
liked. Like, I liked kind of what happened, in a musical element, and I was like, oh, that sounded crazy. And I'll sometimes at the time I'll voice memo parts of the worship, like, oh, this worship really cranking, or this praise is really cranking.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
and I recorded parts of it on voice memo, and
Mm,
I'll listen to it back, and I was like, okay,
mm,
why does this sound good? And like, why did this work? You get what I'm
mhm,
saying? And just learning, it helped me hearing a lot of worship music, listen to more worship music, help me to understand more of
mm,
song arrangement, and kind of dynamics, how to build up energy in the song, and how to have a cohesive unit, as far
mm,
as the sound of something. As far as salvation goes in general, instead of just worship music, I would say just seeing the examples and the impact of how music affected certain aspects of the Bible, and how integral music was
mm,
in the Bible, it definitely helped me to really understand the weight of the stuff that I'm doing. you know
yeah,
for example, when Saul was still king, David was around, he called for David to play the harp, and
yeah, yeah,
demons were leaving him. You get what I'm saying? And
yeah,
I
yeah,
read that, and it's like he didn't say anything, like he didn't say any words, he was just playing, and the
yeah,
guy got delivered. And also, whenever sometimes when the children of Israel would be under attack, I
yeah,
remember, what's his name? Um, I'm blanking, but basically, the children of Israel under attack, under this certain king. His name will come back eventually,
I got
but
you.
Jehoshaphat. There we go. So
Mhm,
basically, they're under attack,
mhm,
and they got word of it, and the response wasn't to get all the able-bodied men, get their weapons, get their shields, get their swords.
mhm,
They assembled the finest band and the finest singers, and they started praising God.
mm,
And their oppressors ran away.
right,
and so
right,
and so and so I read that. I was reading stuff like that. I was like, okay, so music, you know, is a way to affect the soul, to soothe the soul, and it's also a way to fight battles spiritually. So
Mm.
that just kind of it kind of really helped me understand, the purpose of music and the power of music.
Yeah, that's good. And it's so funny as you was mentioning that, I was thinking about when David played the harp to basically remove the distressing spirit that was on King Saul. Because this was during the time where God was removing King Saul from his kingship, and
Yeah.
then they was basically going to bring David into that role. So it's and then when you go to the Psalms, you see how David is pouring his heart out to God, and that's why they say that David was a man after God's own heart. So we do see the impact of music and why music and the melody and everything in regards to the lyrics is important. So even for you, like, I know sometimes things, especially in our lives, especially when the flesh and the spirit are at war, we can sometimes have moments where we're allowing the flesh to have the influence as opposed to the spirit. So for you, what are things that you do to keep Christ at the center when it comes to your creative process in producing?
I don't force it. Don't force it if it's not there.
That's
Um
good.
there are a lot of times where, especially because we have social media now, we're like, we feel rushed to, pump out as much, material as humanly possible, as fast as possible, you know because that's what's best for the algorithm. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? The more
Mm-hmm.
if you post on TikTok 4 times a day, they're gonna show your stuff to more people, especially if they engage with it. So now you have kind of like the rage bait or the clickbait, to appeal to certain
Absolutely.
trends. Or if you hop on a certain trend that's going, that then your content will get pushed further because that's what's working in the algorithm and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
um not allowing, like what really helped me um was to really just listen to the voice of God, um
Mm-hmm.
and not rush, especially if you don't feel like something is complete, or if you don't feel like it's ready, you know
Mm-hmm.
you get what I'm saying. I allow myself to sit with stuff. I don't really
Mm-hmm.
act on the first impulse, especially if I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
if I don't hear the Holy Spirit, immediately. I'll just wait. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Instead of just going with it and putting something out, you get what I'm saying? I would just wait, until like I can hear it back a few times, maybe get a second opinion or whatever, and really just sit with stuff, and really let it be something that you can be proud of. You get what I'm saying? Because especially when you put stuff out, on the internet, it's there forever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if even if you take it down, somebody clipped it and has it in their own. You get what I'm saying? Somewhere. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really important to put out stuff that is um very meaningful, the first time. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right.
and that's kind of my, I guess, thing. I'm not really a quantity person. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on, you know simplifying my workflow so that I can create more.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is benefits to that. But not forcing it if it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically.
Y- You know, what you just said is important, not even when it comes to music, but even when it comes to our walk. Because sometimes when we're walking with God, we're treating it as if we're running with God. And I think that's the thing that you're kind of emphasizing is, I don't force it, right? I allow the spirit to move. If I don't feel like this is what God is telling me to do, and that's why trying to hear accurately the voice of the Lord is important as a believer. So when you were saying those things, it basically brought me to this verse in Galatians 5:25. It says, if we live by the Spirit, let us also walk in step with the Spirit. And the reason that I share this verse is because it's kind of like a tango dancer, right? If you're dancing with somebody, you want the other person to basically lead you. And
Yeah.
that's how it is when you're moving with the Spirit. And that's how it should be even when it comes to music. is that if God is basically telling me to put this song out, then I'll put this song out.
Yeah.
So that was good, man, just to hear that from you. So how long have you been producing before you eventually moved to actually being a rapper?
It was about a year and a half.
Okay, so a year and a half. So that's pretty fast, right? Pretty
Yeah.
fast. It seemed like things was moving for you. What was happening in that moment, or what was that moment when you realized that your calling was more than just being a producer, but God was actually calling you to be a rapper as well?
Um, I think it was this youth conference that I went to April of that same 2022 year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, it was a 3-day conference. It's called Dominion Conference by 100% Triumph. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and literally throughout that whole 3-day period, number one, I got baptized. There's multiple sessions of hearing the word, things like that. But one thing that really stuck with me was one of the brothers that was there. He's a bit older than me. His name was Tony, and he was a Christian artist. He's actually with the Lord right now, but he's a Christian artist. Um, and he pulled me to the side one of the nights. He pulled a couple of me and my guys to the side. It was like 1 a.m. Um,
Okay.
and he was just talking to each of us, about certain things that we like, certain things that we want to do, and how to maximize, kingdom advancement. And
Mm,
he was talking to a few of us, things that we like. One of my friends, he's very influential. He's good at, galvanizing people. He ended up becoming Mr. Bowie State for like 3 years. You get what I'm saying?
shout out to Bowie State.
Yeah. And so one of my things was like, I'm really I'm really creative, and like
Mhm.
I like creating a lot of stuff. And I already told him that I'm a producer. He was like, good, but what's stopping you from making more music
Mm,
in general? You know,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I didn't have an answer for it. I
right. You
and
stuck.
yeah, I didn't have an answer for it. And so I guess uh my push to getting into, becoming an artist as well was just, why not? You know what I'm saying? Why
Mm,
not?
mm,
I didn't have a reason not to. You know, I can't I I'm not the best lyricist. I had a stuttering problem. I still have a stuttering problem. I have a lisp, but so did Moses. So Moses had a speech
right,
impediment. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right.
Um, and it was just like I be in my mirror rapping lyrics to the songs like bar for bar, word for word. Why
Yeah,
not? Why
yeah,
not try it? Why not try my own stuff? You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So that's kind of how I got into it.
See, it's funny, man, because when we say, nah, I can't, God says who?
Yeah.
And that's how it is, right? Because when he told Moses, he said, who's the one that formed your mouth? And we're trying to tell God who created us, our creator, what we cannot do, right? But he's created us for good works. So it's good that you also had men of God that was able to push you and to identify that you can actually do this too. And that's God using people for that. So what were some hesitations or apprehensions, or did you have any insecurities about being a rap artist at first?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mm.
Um being from the DMV, almost anything you do is champ. You get what I'm saying?
Ah!
It's champ.
Or you a Bama, you
You get what I'm
know?
saying? So anything creative, anything that's outside of the ordinary, if you're not hooping, if you're not, what I'm saying, trapping, whatever, you're champ.
Right, right,
Until
right,
a lot of people mess with you, then you're not champ anymore. You get what I'm saying?
right, right.
So it always that was always one thing that kind of, made me hesitate a little bit. But also I didn't really like the sound of my voice for a really long time. Um
Mm,
and because, I have a lisp, I stutter a lot, I can't
mm.
freestyle. Those are all kind of three obstacles that I kind of had to, you know, overcome
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
develop, as time went by. Because when I this was 2022. I didn't start recording until 2023. So that entire year, it was all that battle. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
I was writing songs, I was writing lyrics to songs. At the time they weren't really that good, but just getting my pen active, you get what I'm saying? Um
That's good.
um and really just, working out my creative muscle, at the time.
Mm.
Um that's what really helped me. And I would record demos. I didn't really know how to record. That was also another thing. At the time I didn't really know how to record. So I was
Mhm.
also kind of learning how to record as well, how
Mhm.
to make vocals sit right in the mix and things like that. um
Mhm.
so all throughout that year period, I was still trying to figure it out. And even by 2023, I still didn't have it all figured out. But I started anyway. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And yeah, but around that time I was like, all right, this is enough of me. This is enough of me, just sitting around. Well, not really sitting around, but this is enough of me just sitting on this thing. Let me actually
Yeah.
just go ahead.
And
Yeah.
elevate yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Nah, so that's good. So you said that when you first started writing your lyrics and your songs, that you wasn't that good at first, right? So how were you able to push through that learning curve?
Really just repetition and
Okay.
studying what works well and
Okay.
seeing why it worked well. So
Mm,
I'll take bits of songs that I liked previously, I liked, or aspects of songs that I liked. So for example, like with Kanye, I kind of liked how his production elevated throughout the song. You get what I'm saying? Kind of
yeah, yeah.
progressed through the song a lot of the times when he would work with guys like Mike Dean. He always has his famous outros, guitar solos, synth lead solos, and stuff like that. Um, and I'll study those guys. I'll study how, um, you know, I used to listen to Lil Wayne as well, but I'll look at, okay, he was set up a bar like
Mm-hmm.
16 bars beforehand, and that's what
Mm,
would make it hit a lot harder. So I was like, okay, I'm starting to get why, this was
you
cool.
can you're doing the
Yeah,
science of it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I was just getting into the bones of it and seeing, okay, what makes this person great? What makes this person great? Okay, now how can I put that in my own game? You get what I'm
Mm,
saying? And
mm-hmm.
evolve with that. But yeah,
Wow, that's dope, man. You was like Bill Nye the Science Guy. Like you was just
yeah,
getting into the weeds of it, understanding the data, being more analytical. I think that's fire, right? Because some people are just gifted where they just get in the booth and they can just record nonstop. You know what I'm saying? And they don't have to stop and start and things like that. But I see that you kind of took your time, and even though you had some of these insecurities, you was like, I'm going to push through and get over this learning curve, but I'm going to understand the science when it comes to rap.
yeah.
So that's pretty fire, man. So what advice do you give to somebody who is producer, who's been in the producer chair, but they're interested in now becoming a rapper? Like, what are three things that you would tell that person so they're not afraid to try and make that transition?
Um, three things I would tell somebody is trying to transition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think one of the first things I would say is learn your voice, learn your sound, learn what complements your voice. And
Mm-hmm.
once you figure that out, then you can start experimenting and branching out from there, and starting getting out of your comfort zone and building your sound. But first thing first is just find your sound. And since you're already a producer, it shouldn't really be that hard because you know how to build a sound for somebody else. Now you just
Right.
gotta mess around, you know, do some demos and figure out what fits your voice best. A
Mm-hmm.
second thing, a second thing I would say for a producer trying to transition into an artist is to build your platform. um,
Mm,
if you haven't already. Um, Especially because 90% of the work of an artist is promotion. You get what I'm
yeah,
saying? And getting word
yeah.
out. Making the music is the easy part. You get what I'm
Hmm.
saying? It's everything that goes on the back end that takes most of the time. So I would say if you haven't already, even though most producers now, they're on socials, they're, posting content and things like that. But yeah, definitely build your platform, have your audience be able to, see your face, be recognizable. You get what I'm saying? Third thing, probably be to get in touch with artists that artists are in. I guess if you're a Christian producer, get
Hmm.
acclimated with those Christian artists,
Yeah.
um and just pick their brain about certain stuff, about their process, about you know how they got their sound, what works with them for them, stuff like that, because most of these guys, they're pretty open, they're pretty down to earth,
Hmm.
once you talk to them. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, that's kind of, I didn't really directly ask any Christian artists, but I was just by virtue of talking to them, I was
Hmm.
I was able to pick some things up from them,
Hmm.
and kind of build it into my own stuff.
Got you, got you. Now that's good, and I think that's valuable information that will help anybody who's trying to make that transition. Now you touched on finding your voice. That was the first thing that you mentioned. So for me, when I was getting into rap, right, I started rapping a little bit. I was a lead mic and go go, right. So that's a different element. There's a lot of yelling, a lot of chants and stuff like that, and you may rap here and there. So I was trying to say to myself, how is that how do I translate that into rap, right? And incorporate that because I have a DMV accent, a DMV dialect. This is how I speak. So I remember there was a lot of artists that I felt as though I could fuse together and somehow create my sound. And that was Kanye West, which is my favorite rapper, right? And then also Young Dolph. So those two people that I try to basically fuse together while also adding my DMV accent. So for you, because you talked about having a list and not necessarily being confident at first, like what was the process for you actually finding your sound as an artist?
Um, a lot of trial and error.
Hmm.
um, I think what helped me definitely find my sound is learning mixing. Mixing is like
Mm,
is most of you
that's
know
good.
it's most of the thing, really.
Did a lot of the
Um,
leg work.
yeah.
Got you.
Once you can get yourself a good mix, you'll be more happy about how you sound. You get what I'm saying? Because
Got you.
yeah, that's something I forgot to mention earlier. But really, a lot of things
Makes
that
sense.
limit upcoming artists or starting artists is that their mixes are terrible. You get what I'm saying? So they
Mm,
have no idea, how to, improve, because they can't really hear, what they're doing, because
right.
everything
Right.
is just, they don't really know where to start. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
kind of how, like, sometimes when your parents ask you to clean your room, but your room is so dirty that you don't even know where to start.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that. It makes it harder to improve when things aren't as clear. So definitely, learning just a little bit of mixing, learning the principles of mixing and just like levels, learning, what a compressor does, learning, okay, what reverb does, delay does, all these simple things, that will really help you as to finding your sound for sure. It's definitely mixing.
Got you. Got you. Who did you feel like you sounded like at first?
Um, at first, probably like Polo G's younger brother. I don't know. I don't know. I
Oh,
guess
oh, oh, geez, younger brother.
I guess something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I had somebody else say that Polo G was actually influenced for their sound as well. So yeah, that's interesting. And it's good to hear that a lot of artists, even when we was on the secular side of things, they actually did a tribute to us, even finding our sound now. So that's actually pretty dope, man. That's good. And when was that exact? Do you remember that exact moment when you actually found your sound, and how did you feel when it happened?
I don't think it was an exact moment, I would say, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like a certain stretch of time where I was really starting to get comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with just the song making process. Cause even throughout, part of 2023, there was one song that I felt really comfortable recording that like, I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of flew through. It was like, okay, yeah, I like this. It was called Solid Rock. Um
Mm-hmm.
and but most like the rest of the songs that I put out that year, I wasn't as comfortable, or I didn't really have that kind of like magic that I had with that one song. And then
Mm-hmm.
the next year, it was starting to become more common. So in 2024, beginning of the year, it was kind of the same thing. I was starting to get I got more comfortable like with the recording process, but I wasn't really feeling that magic necessarily, while I was
Mm-hmm.
recording, at the beginning of the year, with the project that I dropped at the beginning of the year. There's still some songs I like there for sure, but I like had to it didn't come as easy at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I still think that the songs on there were pretty good. Um, until I got to like midway through the year,
Mm-hmm.
around June of 2024, I dropped a little EP called Short
Dope.
Notice. Um, I think it was a song called Maxed Out Freestyle. That's like when I got really comfortable with my rapping ability.
Okay. Okay.
As far as putting bars together, flows and things like that. Um, and like when I got more comfortable with like my melodic sides, definitely, literally the next song after that little project called Tonight, that was like when it's probably still one of my more popular songs. Um,
Yeah.
and that was when I was like, okay, I'm starting to get comfortable. And so from that, I guess that would be like the turning point where I was like, okay, yeah, I'm getting the hang of this thing. I'm so really starting to find it.
That's good, man. That's pretty awesome. It's a process, and I think we all understand that for sure. So you mentioned that you've been introduced to many other Christian hip hop artists that's in the space, and I know you've built relationship with many other Christian hip hop artists because of your producing abilities, and also you also being a rapper as well. Who are some notable names that you have been able to basically connect with, and what have you learned from those relationships?
Um, I think the first Christian artist that um I in the space that I talked to was Tyler 1K. Tyler
Okay.
1K. Um he was at the time I was still renovating my playlist
Okay.
of just like music and stuff. I think around that time I'd actually completely wiped my whole Apple Music, and I was starting from ground zero, building my building, because I deleted like 1,000 plus songs. So like
Wow.
yeah. And so at the time, I literally spent like 2 weeks just putting together a playlist of stuff that I actually like listening to, and
Uh-huh.
like Thailand was one of the guys that was like was pretty predominant in that playlist. and
Yeah.
and so like not too long after that, I reached out to him just in the DM, and
Mhm.
he literally responded like within a few days. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And I sent him some stuff. He actually got on it. Put out a record, I think that November of that year, November 2022. Um,
Okay.
and just chatting with them here and there, in the DMs. Um, at the time, I also reached out to Main Too Wavy as well.
Too
Uh,
wavy.
yeah, Main Too Wavy. Um, Didn't really talk that much. Um, I think an artist that I talked the most with was Trey Gad. Trey Gad
Very good.
in 2024. I think he's from the Virginia area. I'm not too sure, but I met him at a concert um
Okay.
that was in Columbia. It's called the Heroes Festival, and like
Okay.
a bunch of artists. They had Scooty Wop come through. They had uh
Wow.
Trey,
Dope.
yeah, they had Scooty Wop come through. Trey Gadd, De La Cruz came through. I was able to
Hmm.
meet him.
Hmm.
Um, and so before the show, um, I wasn't even a VIP guy, but my man's Omar, who was kind of like I guess VIP, he got me in the door,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I was able to chat them up before the show, just
Right.
and yeah, and so those conversations there, really helped me to develop my sound and take
Yeah.
bits of their game and put it in mine.
Right, right. No, that's absolutely good, man. So you went to this event. What would you tell somebody in regards to how important Christian networking is?
It's literally how you it's how most people get their placements as producers. It's not as much, skill based as it is network based. You get what I'm saying? That's just a
Mm,
general thing. It's not even just Christian hip hop, but
it's just a
it's
general
it's
thing.
a
Yeah,
general thing. You like your network is your worth. You get what I'm saying? Your
yeah,
network is your net worth. You get what I'm saying?
yeah.
um and just the value of the people that you can't really replace it with any skill really, because you can be the most skilled person, but if nobody knows you, then it's not going to be put to use. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
the thing about it is just don't be scared to put yourself out there. Generally I'm a pretty quiet person, pretty shy. But just stepping out of my comfort zone, just walking up to folks, just introducing yourself, saying what you do, being confident as well, being confident and proud
Mhm,
of what you do.
mhm,
It'll really let them know that you take your stuff serious. And
mhm.
you get what I'm saying? And when you ask people questions, it definitely lets you, especially the type of questions you ask, it would definitely
Right,
let them know that you're really serious about this stuff. Like if you walk up to an artist and it's like and you ask them what kind of compressor do you use, that's not a common question. You get what I'm saying?
right,
You're gonna be
right,
like,
right.
okay, this guy might know something.
Yeah.
You be using the LA 2A. Oh, me too. I be using the 1070. You know what I'm saying? And like,
Now we
so
speaking the same language.
yeah, yeah.
Nah,
So
that's good.
yeah, putting yourself out there is definitely a big part for sure. Getting in the discords, getting in the whatever, getting in the
Yeah,
IG lives, being a part of the community.
yeah,
Definitely what helps. For sure.
yeah. Yeah, just stepping in on faith, man, and just getting out your comfort zone. I mean, and like you said, I think that's just anything in life, right? Networking, collabing with people. I mean, it's important because if you want to see your career take off, or you want to be able to be in those spaces and rooms where these are where all the other artists are going to be, then you're just going to have to really just have that confidence and just have that leap of faith. So in regards to like collaborating, right? Because obviously you produce for artists, you have been featured as an artist. What makes a collab successful?
Uh, a successful collab, I wouldn't say it's a numbers thing primarily. It
Hmm.
definitely has a part to play in it, but you could collab with an artist and then you find out later that their whole theology is completely screwed up. And then now you're at a crossroads like, okay, this song got 1.5 million streams, but this guy got some twisted theology. Should I keep this song up or not?
Mm,
And so I think what will definitely make a valuable collab is for both parties to definitely be on the same page and just know a little something about the person that you're working with, um and just having a mutual interest, having a common mutual interest as to what you want to do with the project that you're working on.
hmm.
It'll also help the creative point when you both have, a collective vision on what you're putting out. So for example, like if you're featuring somebody on a song, um, you can just send a person to open, but if you don't tell them like the vision of the song, then they're just gonna have a random 8, 16 bars just plopped in the middle of your song that will kind of like it'll be
It
hard, but
doesn't
like it has nothing to do with what
do
you was
with
just
the
saying in the
right,
chorus in the verse
right,
one. You know what I'm
right,
saying? So definitely just having a common mutual interest.
right,
And obviously in a Christian space, you want to make sure everybody's saved, born again, theology straight. You know what I'm saying? Just
right,
basic things. You don't have to agree on everything, but you know what I'm
right,
saying? If you think Jesus Christ is Lord, blah, say,
right,
blah, then let's go. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know at my church we always talk about the essentials and the non-essentials, right? And we can never debate the essentials, which is Jesus being the Son of God and Him dying on the cross and rising in 3 days for our sins. Like those are things that we have to make sure as artists that we are aligned theologically and doctrinally when it comes to those things. And then two, I like what you said. You said shared vision, right? Because that's a good point. Because I think there's a process. Like we got to get in, we should write together, we should produce together. We got to make sure that we're sharing ideas when it comes to trying to achieve one common goal. And I always think having writer sessions is probably good. But when somebody doesn't understand the vision or they're not on board with the vision, that to your point, I think that can kind of not give you the best recipe for success when it comes to a collab. So I think that's good, man. I think the audience needed to hear that. So looking back now, based on where you are, right, currently, you just got saved, you started producing. What would you tell your older version or your younger version, I mean, based on what you know now?
Um, I guess what mm, I guess what I told a previous version of me is to not not doubt your sound. You know,
Mm,
because at the time when I was first starting, um, I was doing a lot of experimentation, and I ended up kind of in a period probably around 2023 when I was just trying to make like the most popular types of beats at the time, like the little baby type beat, the little Durk type beat, whatever have you. You know what I'm
mm-hmm,
saying? Instead of really developing my sound as a producer, um and at the time, which and mind you, mimicking and copying popular songs is also very important, because you need to learn
mm,
how they work,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I got at a point where I was just kind of like a printing press of just like the same type beat that you will see on YouTube. You know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And I wasn't, and also my confidence. I would definitely tell my younger self to just be more confident in my stuff.
mm-hmm.
Because when you take your stuff more seriously, or when you believe in yourself more, it'll make other people take you more seriously as well. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's really it.
Yeah, having that confidence and then, like you said, sharpening that tool. The template is always out there. I always tell people don't reinvent the wheel. So that's good, man. So we're near the end, man, of this conversation, man. But I definitely have a few questions that I want to ask you before we go ahead and end this podcast. So I want to ask you one, what projects do you got that you're working on currently? What's your favorite scripture? And then also, what is your dream collab? Since we were just talking about that.
Okay, so some upcoming projects I got. Um, so I had just dropped my an EP called Through the Storm in March, end of March. Um, if you haven't, obviously go check that out.
Go,
I put
go,
put a lot of effort into that joint. Each song has a transition into the next song, whatever have you.
go.
Some upcoming projects. I got kind of like a retro 80s 90s R&B ish vibe called SOS. It's acronym from Songs of Solomon. It's typically all the aspects of love. It's probably going to be like
That's dope.
a EP mixtape. I'm trying to get into getting better at singing and making more R&B pop stuff. I've dropped stuff like that before, but just being able to make a whole cohesive body of that definitely is something that I wanted to do because I like the nostalgia of 80s sounding stuff, because that's what gets sampled most of the time. You get
That's
what I'm
true.
saying?
That's
That's
true.
80s soul, 80s R&B, 80s pop is typically what gets sampled. You get what I'm saying?
Today. Yeah.
So I kind of want to make that, and also because I've been more, my musical palette is kind of like grown. I'm starting to like more genres, and so I want to create more genres as well. And also, I probably have a project that I'm gonna drop sometime in the summer. I'm probably
Okay.
I'm probably gonna call it Rent Due or something. It's just me, expressing my rapping
Rent due.
ability and just having rapping like the Rent Due basically, and just yeah, just it's just gonna be all rap, just crank. You get what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
because I haven't really done that in a while. So I'm gonna just put that out before I get into the pop, the R&B, the slow stuff again. You know what I'm saying? Just for stuff for people to have fun with, vibe to, in the summer, things like that.
Dope. Dope. So rent due, SOS, and what was the first one that you mentioned?
Through the storm, which is already
Through
dropped.
the through the storm, through the storm. So y'all make sure you stay tuned for that. E-Man got these projects. Through the storm is already released, but he got SOS and rent due that's coming out soon. So what's
Yeah.
your favorite scripture?
Favorite scripture is Psalm 8, verse 4 through 6 or something.
Mhm.
I'm gonna pull it up, but
Sure.
basically it says, "What is man that you're mindful of him? What is the son of man?" You know, let me put it up so I don't misquote.
Absolutely.
But yeah, what is man that you're mindful of him, and the son of man that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with
Hmm.
glory and honor. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. So that one is my favorite because I struggle a lot with my self-esteem. You get what I'm saying?
Mm,
Um I'm still working on it today, but just my view and my perspective of myself, sometimes I'm a little too hard on myself. And I don't really think as highly of myself as God thinks highly of humans in general, you know,
mm,
and the original plan and creation of man is for him to dominate on the earth, but I'm sitting here being dominated, on the earth. So
mm.
it's like it's
Right.
something that always echoes in my head, that the guy that created the infinitely expanding universe, has me on his mind. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And just the position that he puts us in, um it's something to be jealous of. That's why Satan likes to mess with us a lot of the times, because you know he's jealous of our position,
Yes.
because he Satan was an angel, Lucifer, and he messed up, and now he's cooked eternally forever. But
Yeah.
here we go, messing up 24/7. You know what I'm saying? But we have God come out of heaven, you know, just so he could bring us from eternal damnation back into heaven. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so
Yeah.
that's something that always stays on my mind for sure.
That's encouraging, bro. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. So what is your dream collab?
Dream collab. Uh I mean, I have a lot of people that I want to work with for sure. I don't think I have a necessarily a individual dream collab. Like I
Hmm.
want to I want to get records out with some of my favorite producers, like Project, Warren,
Hmm.
Jay Boski, AJ. AJ Beats, guys like that. I'm always down to get stuff out with them for sure. As
Okay.
far as artists go, let's see. I've been wanting to get a record out with my guy Efosa for sure.
Okay.
Maybe a record with Keon.
Okay.
Um, for sure. Let's see.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people really.
Okay.
Um, I want to get something out with Hovey for sure.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Um,
Shout out to Hovey. Shout out to Keon. Shout out to Ifosa.
yeah. It's literally a lot of people. Like most of the artists I like, I want to get something out with them for sure.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope, man. Well, I hope that they hear this, they see this interview, and they hear that we shout you out, man. And
Oh, and
we
Oche
also
for sure. Oche,
Oche.
yeah,
Oche
yeah,
is
yeah,
nice. Oche.
yeah.
Oche,
Let me get
if you
some.
watch this, give him my boy Eman. You know what I mean? Dope
Yeah.
producer and artist. I would love to see that collab happen. So we're gonna be praying on that. But Eman, thank you for joining the Be Holy podcast, brother. Thank you for sharing your insight. Thank you for sharing what it means or what it looks like to go from a producer to a rapper and everything that you was able to share with the audience. I want to thank you for joining the show, man. And this is it for the Be Holy podcast. Remember, be holy, live holy, and keep it holy. All right. And we out.